Hey, everybody. Thank you so much. And I'm Galen Troyer. I lead Climate Tech and Economic Innovation for Miami-Dade County. Woo, we've got it going on. It is happening. I would just encourage all of you in the back to come to the center if you're comfortable. This is our 10th Climate Tech Meetup, and it's really great to see you all here and have Larta. We are missing Matt Hagman, who he and I started this, I think about a year and a half ago with all of you, and it's been phenomenal. And we really are, we've made a difference. We're doing great work. And I can talk more at the end about the Tech Hub and this database that Opportunity Miami and Beacon Council is hosting. But for right now, I want to turn it over to Rod for some intro remarks.
Thanks. How's everybody? All right. Good. So really excited to have you all here. So this is the 10th, so I just want to do a little straw poll. Who here has been to more than 7 of the Climate Tech meetups? Wow, that's good. Who's been to more than 5? Hands high. Who's been to 3 or more? Okay, quite a few. Who's been to 2 or more? And who's it their first time? This is their first timers. Wow, that's amazing. Let's do that again. First timers? Wow, glad to have you guys here. So just a little bit about the Beacon Council, about Opportunity Miami. The Beacon Council is the economic development organization, public-private partnership charged with growing the economy of Miami-Dade County. We do that, we've been around for about 40 years, and we do that through providing thoughtful, strategic support to companies that are considering moving to promoting Miami, first of all, but also to providing strategic support to companies that are trying to move to Miami, as well as companies that are already here. Last year, we brought about 5,700 new jobs to the Miami-Dade market with an average wage of about $100,000 a year in terms of wages. 27 of the projects, we did 51 transactions. 27 of the transactions that we did last year were new companies moving to Miami. 24 of the projects that we did last year were existing companies that were already here. At the core of that work of bringing new companies and creating jobs is the idea that we want to build an economy that's strong. And not only that's growing, but an economy that's strong in terms of being sustainable, in terms of the built environment, in terms of as well how the economy operates, an economy that's inclusive in terms of no matter where you live in the economy, no matter what you look like, whether you're man, woman, veteran, disabled, all those things, you can participate, and ultimately push an economy that's ultimately more competitive. And competitiveness being the mix of factors that make a place attractive to live, to work, to invest, right? And when you think about the work that we lead through Opportunity Miami, Opportunity Miami has 3 pillars. One is around climate resilience, talent, and entrepreneurship, all with an inclusive lens. And I would argue that the climate work is really kind of at the front of what we lead with. We know that if we are not thoughtful, strategic, focused on climate resilience, that we won't be here. And so we're committed to it, not just because it's the right thing for the economy, but it's the right thing for all of us to do. We're glad to have you. We're going to continue to have these Climate Tech meetups that are going to be, both inspirational, but also a great opportunity to learn about what's happening in our market. So we're excited about what's going to happen today. I would be remiss if I didn't recognize Matt Hagman for his leadership in both starting Opportunity Miami as well as co-starting the Climate Tech Meetup with Galen Troyer. Matt has been a stalwart in this community for a very long time. His work with the Beacon Council, but also prior to that with the Knight Foundation and Miami Herald. So he's moving on to a great opportunity with the national organization, but he's going to continue to be here in Miami and be engaged with us. So we wish him best in the next chapter. But thank you all for coming.
Great. So thank you so much, Rod. You guys, this is very exciting. It's Carlos and Hannah from Larta, and I am going to turn it over to them to start the programming. But just for a little bit of context, Larta got some funding to create Venture Fellows, which are social impact climate startups. And they were starting in LA, which is where they're based, and they were looking for one other partner, and they chose Miami, South Florida, like the full region here. And it's amazing. It's fantastic. Like, that's what we're going to learn about today. But this is what happens when we make ourselves a place that where partners can land, right? It can be transformational. And I am very excited to introduce, Hannah, are you going to do the intros? To introduce Hannah.
Thanks, Galen. Hi, everyone. So nice to have you here. Thank you all for coming out. I've heard a lot of people had some issues with traffic getting here, so sorry about that, but we really appreciate you taking the time to come and listen to our amazing founders. Just to quickly introduce myself, I've been working on the Venture Fellows program for the past year, and I've really had the opportunity to work with these three founders and kind of see their dedication to really advancing climate resilience in their communities, and really excited to just hear them kind of pitch in front of all of you on the incredible work that they've been doing. And just some quick housekeeping before we get started. We're going to keep the Q&A. We're going to kind of have a panel at the end of all of their pitches, more of like a dialogue where you can ask them questions, they can ask you questions with all your expertise. So if you have any questions, please keep them to the end. And with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Jasmine Locke-Rodriguez from Phytoflora. She is truly just an inspiration to using research in order to really advance entrepreneurship and innovation in creating a more resilient space in Miami. So thank you, Jasmine. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Hannah. Good morning, everybody. What if you could hand this bouquet of flowers to a loved one as not only a gift of your affection, but if you could tell them that these flowers helped clean our local waterways? My name is Dr. Jasmine Locke-Rodriguez. I'm the founder of Green Thumb Strategies, and I'm excited to tell you about our venture, Phytoflora, and how we intend to make this a reality. Clicker. Growing up in Miami, I didn't get a car when I turned 16. I got a kayak, and I kayaked everywhere. I fell in love with the aquatic ecosystem of our region, but I learned about a threat that was looming beneath the surface, and that is nutrient pollution. Fertilizers that we're adding to farms and even our urban lawns, as well as other organic debris, wash into our waterways during heavy storms and floods, which are only increasing due to climate impact issues. When these nutrients enter our waterways, rather than feeding the plants they were originally applied for, they feed something else, algae. Too much causes algae blooms, which can have human health impacts, causing closures on our beaches, and can lead a process called eutrophication, which depletes oxygen in our water and suffocates aquatic life. In 2020, the Biscayne Bay saw the region's first major fish kill, with thousands of fish washing up ashore. The Biscayne Bay has recently been valued at up to $62 billion of a contribution to our economy. If it continues to degrade, so will our region's economic value. My journey to address this started about 10 years ago, where I became a sustainable agriculture advocate, working to help develop community gardens and support small organic farmers in reaching more of the public. But I realized what was happening was not enough, and I decided to pursue my PhD at FIU in environmental science to address the intersection of nutrient pollution, agriculture, and our aquatic ecosystem. This created the inspiration for what is now today Phytoflora. Phytoflora is not just a business, it's a mission to harmonize the environment with our farms. Essentially, we use a type of green infrastructure called floating treatment wetlands, which use floating platforms with plants grown directly in them. The roots that grow into the water can help uptake these nutrients and other pollutants as well, such as heavy metals and PFEs, and absorb them into their biomass, and help prevent harmful algae blooms from occurring. What's wonderful about floating wetlands is that they're easily adaptable. You can add them and remove them without changing the landscape, which is great in urban spaces that are tight for space and generally do have deep water, for including stormwater ponds and our canals, to manage the intense amount of water that we have here in Florida. Research has shown the more that you harvest the plants from these platforms, the better they are at remediating the water. But this can be a labor-intensive process. So Phytoflora takes this pain point and makes it an opportunity. And we're growing commercially viable crops on these platforms, a lot like you might imagine a hydroponic farm. And specifically, I've been investigating cut flowers that can grow on these platforms. This does two things. It allows us to, have incentive to harvest regularly, which improves our efficiency. And number two, we now have a revenue stream that can help support the process. A quick look at the market. The floriculture industry is valued at over $52 billion for the country, with Florida making up about a little more than $1 billion of that. But the cool thing, and the exciting part, is that Miami turns out to be the hub for the cut flower industry for the entire country, with over 80% of our flowers being imported through Miami International Airport. This means there's an enormous amount of infrastructure for creating these bouquets and shipping them to the rest of the country. Not to mention our bustling event scene and an excessive amount of florists that are eager to use beautiful, different flowers that could not otherwise be shipped so far. So I think we are well positioned to tap into this market with locally grown, sustainable flowers with an impact. Thus, our business model is simple and circular. We're growing crops on these platforms for sale. This gives us revenue to support jobs that continue this operation and potentially fund its growth. We have other revenue possibilities, including nutrient tracking services that allow us to track how well we're cleaning the water for those who need to show these metrics. Therefore, our host customers include essentially anyone who's managing water. This is largely municipalities and some agencies like the South Florida Water Management District, with whom I have been developing some proposals with. This can also include other private industries, such as a farm, tight for space, needing to have water on their property, HOAs, or even other industries like limestone quarries who have these large freshwater ponds. Currently we seek to validate our MVP at up to an acre scale, and from there hope to grow to 2, 5, 10 acres and beyond. Along the way, we are working to develop our own unique product for our purposes, and as we have that capacity, we can work with strategic water managers who are already across the state and the country working on water quality, who'd be interested in possibly purchasing these products, learning our methods, and we can support them along the way. So our ask today, our current seed fundraise is $750,000, where we're looking to do our half-acre minimum pilot scale to prove that we can generate nearly $300,000 worth of revenue, and that's just from flower sales on these systems. So as I close our presentation today, I thank you for listening and invite you to follow along on this journey, sign up for our newsletter on our website, and be a part of helping create a cleaner water and sustainable future for South Florida and beyond.
Thank you, Jasmine. Next, I want to introduce our next presenter, Larta Teles from Solar United Neighbors. They are truly the perfect example of using local methods in order to achieve kind of national success in increasing solar access for all. So, Larta, I'll throw it over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. I'm Laura, and we are with Solar United Neighbors, and we want to dream with you on how we can achieve solar for all. We are a vendor-neutral national nonprofit. We are for the solar curious and the solar homeowner, and we are committed to consumer protection and advocacy. We're building a community of people with an energy system with rooftop solar at their cornerstone. Clicker is not, okay. So we are in the Sunshine State, so please think about a time that you enjoyed the sun warming your face. Maybe you were walking down the street, maybe you were at the beach, or maybe just driving to work. This sunshine could be powering our lives and the lives of our neighbors. Imagining not clearing giant swaths of land, but using existing roof space, creating living wage jobs while using the least water-intensive, cheapest form of energy. Cleaner water, cleaner air, greenhouse gas offset, resilience. Not just for the doctor, lawyer, bank executive, but for the welder, teacher, social worker, for all of us. So why solar for all? Nationally, the average energy cost burden of low to moderate income households is double that of the median income households and 3 times greater than higher income households. Low income and disadvantaged households are often in the most polluted, extracted, frontline, vulnerable communities with the highest need for resilience. These communities, especially brown and black households, are also the least represented in the solar market. Most importantly, we are missing a golden opportunity to deploy more clean energy while achieving energy equity and supercharging our economy and energy security. The recent historic climate and infrastructure investment laws have made the case for equitable access to solar even more possible and timely. So we have made a big impact in Florida. These numbers are a little bit outdated, and we have helped over 2,500 people grow solar across the state, leading to $111 million of electricity bill savings, hundreds of local jobs. We are ready to drill down deeper to unlock solar for all, and we know that low to moderate income households need these even more. So what is our secret sauce? How do we deploy solar in these markets? First, group buys and solarized campaigns bring down the cost, and the contagion effects helps people feel more comfortable going solar with their peers. We've proven this model with our co-op success. Then education and consumer protection throughout the process, which not only increases adoption, but support and buy-in for advocacy. Subsidies exist across industries. So we need to subsidize solar adoption for those that stand to gain the most and have been left out. The benefits extend to the whole community and larger economy. Inclusive financing looks at the whole person, not just credit score, and unsecured loans have a track record of lower than average default rate. Community development financial institutions and green banks have access to more funding than ever before and are ready to fill this financing gap. So where are we at? We've piloted low and moderate income pilots across the nation, and we're ready to pilot this in Miami and across the state. We will hopefully be able to scale throughout the state through the Solar for All opportunity as part of the EPA's Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. So what do we need? We are on the brink of massive expansion. The model works and is scalable. Cheap, abundant, and accessible solar is for everyone. We have the opportunity to democratize resilience and security and bring power to the people. The upcoming federal implementation funds are a game changer, but we need to grow drastically to implement this work. In the next 6 months, we need to hire 7 new staff members, set up the website and full-scale program to deploy these funds, expand our service reach through things like language translation. We've proven the program. Now the opportunity to rapidly expand solar access is here, and we need your help to ensure success. Together we rise, and we hope that you'll join us in bringing solar for all. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Laura. And again, just a quick reminder, if any of you have any questions for Jasmine or Laura, please keep them and save them for our panel at the end. And then lastly, I would like to introduce Nicholas from Hyperlocal Farms. Truly an inspiration in using nature-based solutions and the resources that we already have to increase access to healthy food for all. So, Nick.
Appreciate it. It's great to see some familiar faces in here as well. Carlos, good to see you. I didn't know you were coming today. Perfect. All right, so yeah, I'm the founder and CEO of Hyperlocal Farms. There's a huge backstory to this, but we'll get into that in a second. So this all started as most companies did and most changes did during COVID-19, during the pandemic, when we realized the huge problem with the produce supply chain. As some of you may already know, the majority of the produce grown in the US is grown in California or Arizona or Mexico and shipped over to the East Coast to fulfill our needs over here. And as Miami continues to grow, we're going to have much more needs pretty soon. So we started this initially, before this even happened, we had a fishing tournament donation program where we went to local fishing tournaments, collected the unused fish, filleted them, and gave them to soup kitchens. That was our food security efforts. When COVID happened, we couldn't go to those fishing tournaments anymore, so we decided to use aquaponics by growing the fish and also growing produce to then donate to all those soup kitchens. Then some funders came to me. They're like, Nick, you can sell the produce too. And I'm like, that's a great idea. So I was like, well, I don't know why I didn't think about that. So this all happened, and Sodexo gave us the initial grant funding to start our first facility, actually in Boca Raton. We're not in Miami, but we still do impact Miami a lot. We work with FarmShare as our main distribution partner. You all might have heard of them before. So that all started initially in 2021, and then now, a few years later, we've expanded much more. But the main problem why we started this was a few of them. I mentioned the carbon footprint and the issues with the produce supply chain and that loss in nutritional value, but there's also a nutrient pollution issue with those traditional farms. The majority of those farms have soil, and the nutrients leach out of the soil and into waterways, like Jasmine was saying before, and that causes nutrient pollution and red tide. I'm sure some of you have felt the impacts of that as well in South Florida. Also, traditional farms have a lot of water waste, so we actually use 95% less water than those traditional farms. And to put that in perspective, traditional farms use about 15 gallons of water for one head of lettuce. We use about 0.75 gallons per head of lettuce. So much less, just because we're able to reuse that water within our hydroponic and aquaponic systems. So our solution for limiting the produce supply chain issues that we're having in the US is actually creating hyperlocal farms near large metropolitan areas so we can service those communities. And by doing that, we'd be able to allow year-round access to locally grown and extremely nutritious produce. Again, when we ship it across the country, it loses that nutritional value, and also a lot of the times it creates a huge carbon footprint because the largest grower of microgreens, for example, in the US, ships it overnight in FedEx to the East Coast. So it's a huge carbon footprint associated with that. So in addition, we're able to grow with no pesticides, and in food-safe facilities, we have all the certifications we need. We're currently operating, and instead of your food traveling 3,000 miles, it's going to travel 25 to 100 miles. So much less food miles associated with our model here. So again, like I said, we opened in April 2023 at our new facility. The whole program began in 2021. April 2023 was really our MVP and proving the model further about our operation. We're also accredited by the USDA and the GFSI. That's the Global Food Safety Initiative. That's the highest level of food safety one can achieve at a facility. So currently we can sell to Whole Foods, Fresh Market, Cisco, and a bunch of other distributors, which we currently do. And that number is actually outdated. We're at about $15,000 a month in recurring revenue for the organization, and we're planning on scaling that up relatively soon. So the microgreens, like I was saying before, they provide revenue for the organization, and the more nutritious crops like the lettuce and the kale and the spinach, we donate that all to soup kitchens to feed those in need, that need the produce the most in South Florida. And FarmShare, again, is our main distribution partner throughout this whole process. They pick up at our facility and donate the food throughout South Florida, not just Palm Beach County, but Palm Beach, Broward, and Miami-Dade as well. So we're currently focusing on leafy greens and microgreens. With our next iteration, we're mainly going to be focusing on microgreens because of the extremely high nutritional value, but also the high price point that we can charge on the produce as well. And actually, if you've eaten at some of the restaurants here in Brickell, we currently do sell to them. So I can share about that in a little bit. But yeah, you've probably eaten our produce before if you've eaten in Brickell. So in addition to that, we're looking to launch a workforce development program which would actually train the next generation on how to operate these types of farms. There's a huge issue with the job supply in vertical farms and hydroponic farms because not enough people are being trained on it as well. So a lot of opportunity here. But in total, our impact thus far, we've created 6 jobs, educated over 500 students throughout South Florida, donated over 50,000 meals in South Florida, and saved, that's really over 150 gallons now of water at our new facility. Thank you. but there's more. So we're looking to scale our impact here, and this is actually a picture of our current facility on the top right there and the bottom right as well. You can see it's a vertical farm. So unfortunately, we do use more electricity than we really want to. So we're actually looking, and we're trying to figure out a way to expand without using as much electricity, and we figured out a way to control the environment with a greenhouse with some innovative technologies that we've partnered with companies on, and we're able to now grow in a greenhouse instead of using as much electricity in a vertical farm itself. And it's more cost effective with a greenhouse instead. So we're looking to acquire a 5-acre parcel in Boynton Beach, which would again serve all throughout South Florida. It's a defunct hydroponics farm, and we're looking to purchase that, again in partnership with the USDA. We're already in talks with them. But this one location would serve the entire South Florida area, as well as potentially the west coast of, not in California, of Florida as well. But in addition to that, it has space to expand much further. We have an actual growing area. We have about 200,000 square feet of growing area. But we'd be able to provide enough produce for microgreens in South Florida with just 50,000 square feet. So a huge potential to expand and a huge opportunity that we have here. And in this future facility, we're looking to create about 10 jobs, educate over 5,000 students, donate over 800,000 meals per year, huge jump up from what we're currently doing, and save over 1.5 million gallons of water. And now I think we got questions, but I'll wait for the whole panel, of course.
Thank you. Thanks, Nick. And I'm sure you guys all have burning questions for the three of them. So we'll get into the Q&A shortly. But just beforehand, I also want to extend a personal thank you to the Opportunity Miami team, Suzette, Amy, for collaborating with us to host this event. And also, of course, to Rod and the entire Beacon Council team for hosting us here. And also a quick thank you to Galen, who has been an incredible partner to the Venture Fellows program and to Larta in general. So thank you all for the support. And right before we go into Q&A, I'm going to throw it over to my colleague Carlos from Larta Institute, who will share a bit more about us.
Thanks, Hannah. Thank you for hosting us here. Appreciate, Galen, your remarks, and Beacon Council, Opportunity Miami having us here. Do we want to have chairs for the, okay. We can go ahead and just bring up the folks. I'll just say a few words. I think Galen mentioned that Larta is a nonprofit organization. Yeah, we can bring that one. I think we're okay here. Yeah, we're a nonprofit organization, been around for close to 30 years. Our roots really are in designing, managing, deploying commercialization programs, tech-to-market programs for early-stage science-based ventures, traditionally in partnership with U.S. federal agencies, USDA, Department of Energy, NASA, NOAA, any 3 or 4 letter agency you can think of, we've probably worked with to develop and deploy commercialization programs. And this is getting them market and investor ready. More recently, we've also looked at community impact programs. And we've really looked at how do we design programs that have an opportunity to bring together both community impact, climate resilience, and also health equity. And the Venture Fellows program, really, we were looking at Miami as one of our markets where we wanted to partner with. So really grateful to have some of the companies presenting here today. I'll get out of the way so you guys can see them. And some of the themes that you probably saw here were, thank you, were companies that were not only had a solid business approach, understood the market, had a problem, had an approach, but also had a social impact aspect to it, right? That's number one. Number two is also companies and ventures that were primarily focused on underserved markets, right? Undervalued markets is what we call them as well. And number three is probably, they also looked at other opportunities to provide community impact, workforce development, right? Things of that. So these are common themes that we've seen in companies that we're working with, and it's really sort of the profile that we're looking for when we identify companies for the Venture Fellows program. Our first cohort, we had over 100 applications. We were super excited to select 7 Venture Fellows, 3 of which presented here today. So we're going to have a Q&A portion right now. So for those of you that were writing down some questions, you can have a chance to ask those to the folks here. I will sort of kick it off a little bit just because I was taking some notes myself. Jasmine, for your presentation, you had a slide there on funding, 750K you're looking to raise. Do you have a sense of the use of funds, how those would be deployed?
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Carlos. Yes, I think I put up there, it's about 70% is to acquire the equipment to trial on. I want to test with a few different products that are actually out there. So that's what the majority of the funds go to. About 5% is enough for seeds and materials to grow onto these products, and then the remaining is for operation and work labor. And
Okay, thank
yeah.
you. And follow-on question though
Yeah.
is also any company has sort of a supply chain. You have suppliers, you have vendors, can you talk a little bit about some of those other organizations that you rely on?
Yeah.
And is there any variability in what they provide to you in terms of services or product?
So I mentioned on the roadmap and just now, so there's different products out there at the moment, floating treatment wetlands. They're an up-and-coming technology, and there's different uses for each type. I'm actually pretty friendly with a lot of them. I was just off the phone of one of the biggest providers of the world yesterday, who wants to help support us. And so I think part of the process is identifying which one, and then or developing our own, and creating a local manufacturing process for that so that we can be able to create these platforms more efficiently. But also, as far as like distribution of the actual flowers, for example, there's actually a huge flower conference going on right now in Doral, which is where most of the flower industry is located. And I've had the pleasure to chat with some people there about how we can move these flowers once we have them. In fact, he was telling me, if we can get them packed and cut in one day, he can have them in New York the next day, which is pretty exciting. It means there's a lot of opportunity there. And just to sneak in, not all of South Florida is fresh water, which is where most of our flowers would grow. There's also an opportunity to grow native plants or even restoration species, like raising a mangrove sapling for the first year and then selling them to local native nurseries, whom then are helping plant out living shorelines across the country and largely in Florida. So working and identifying some of those nurseries as well. I think
Thank
that
you.
started that.
Yeah.
Question, answering that.
I'll open it up to see if anybody else from the group here has questions. Yeah.
Yeah, love the solution. Do you have any stats on the eutrophication rates, and are you considering anything with water quality or eutrophication credits to go along with your business model?
Yes. So are you asking how well it cleans the water? So it changes depending on the scenario. Water flow, type of water, what's already in the water. But I did do a projection for Little River Canal, which is one of the biggest contributors to Biscayne Bay. If we covered the canal at about 15 to 20% of the surface area, we're not here to cover the whole, water, then we could reduce the nutrients that are there on an annual basis coming out up to at least 30%, which can bring us significantly lower than the allowable, amount as it's pouring into the Biscayne Bay. I think you had a different question there too.
No,
Yeah.
that's on point.
Cool.
Can you talk about maybe outfalls or maybe the different scenarios in Miami and how the efficacy is working in different cases?
Yeah. So essentially, if you have them in a lake, the water's not moving as fast, and essentially there's more time to treat it. So there's a higher efficiency rate there. When you're putting it in a canal, they're only exposed to the nutrients at a single moment in time. So it has to be as efficient as the plant can be in that moment. But there's other accessories too that we can add to these platforms, including bubblers to help with oxygenation, which also helps with the process. And other features, maybe even oysters, ropes, where can also improve that cleaning when we're putting them in a more brackish area. So it changes a bit, but there's, a lot of factors involved. I'll just kind of.
Anything in regards to cooling and the difference in the effects of potential cooling of the water?
Yeah, temperature definitely impacts nutrient cycling. And in fact, the more as it turns into summer and it gets hot, the nutrients that are there have, a stronger impact on whether or not we're about to experience a eutrophic event. And I'd say as far as remediation, it depends on the plant species. So what's beautiful about growing in Florida is that we have technically a year-long season. We can grow plants most of the year, but by identifying the right species that work well at that time of the year, then we can optimize how well they're able to uptake. Yeah, thank you.
Question over here for either Nick or Laura or Jasmine.
Hey, Jasmine. Hi.
Hi.
So I don't have a question, but my husband works for one of those big flower importers, and he's having so many problems because Sam's Club, Walmart, they're all requiring the green certification, and the farms in South America are having a hard time, getting that certification. So I see a lot of opportunity. Happy to facilitate an introduction, and Plant the Future is another great connection I'd love to make.
That's exciting. Thank you. We actually worked with Plant the Future, too, so that's awesome.
Kind of connections we like to see. In the back, yes.
Here, hold on one second so we get your question recorded.
It's a curiosity. You say that with your biomass, you capture, for example, the heavy metals. After that, you use the biomass for growing plants and flowers. Do you do something for avoiding those heavy metals to go back to the cycle? Do you take them out?
Well, so I haven't, let's see, how to answer best that question. Ultimately, the product is going to an end consumer. So I would definitely be interested overall to have recommendations for what to do in composting your products. I wouldn't be worried, and it was something we'd be testing for, of too high of amount within any one or bouquet of flower that would be harmful to a consumer, for example. And so it's just more a matter of that they have that capacity. If there is too much heavy metals in the water, then that's something I guess we could look into how best to mitigate the impacts of that as well. But generally, it's a matter, when we're looking at a watershed level, it's kind of in any given moment, there's not enough to be harmful to a single plant, but as it all accumulates downstream is where the impact happens. So I would be less concerned about what's happening in the product itself. So it's just an added opportunity or value to that the systems could provide that would, yes.
This question is actually for Hyperlocal Farms, or are we going
We can
one by
we're
one?
free for all. Yep.
Okay, great. I was curious, you mentioned in your presentation that you found a method to increase operational efficiency in your farms by using greenhouses. So can you elaborate a little bit more on that specifically?
Yeah, of course. So with Florida, as you all know, it's very humid, very hot. And the specific crops that we grow, the microgreens, which is our best seller, that crop needs about a temperature range of 70 to 75 degrees. So in the summertime, it's almost impossible to grow microgreens. But we've partnered with a company called Biotherm. They create dehumidifiers and mechanical cooling systems for greenhouses. And so we would be working with them to implement that in the greenhouse. That way we can grow throughout the summer, because that's what our customers care about, because during the summer, no one grows down here, specifically microgreens, because they're so close together. And when they're so close, it has a high humidity range in that, in the closeness of the produce, which creates mold and mildew on the crop, which is not good, which no one likes. So we're going to look to implement that in the greenhouse.
Any other questions? I have one just on comp for Laura and also Nick too. And Laura, since you said you're staffing up, this is a chance for maybe if you can elaborate on what kind of staff you're looking for, the profile of staff, because we all here have contacts, and so we may be able to identify a number of folks that might be interested in working with you. So can you share a little bit on qualifications, or at least maybe the profile of the staffers that you're looking for?
Yeah, so that's something that we're getting ready to do in a few months, but it's going to be a variety of different things between project management, local organizers, someone that really knows these frontline communities, some of our Go Solar support. So there is going to be kind of a variety of different types of folks that we'll be hiring.
Okay, great. And then on one area in your presentations, for both Nick and Laura, is can you share a little bit about, the competition, or is there, co-opetition in your space? Talk a little bit about sort of the competitive environment in which you're going to be operating. Maybe you occupy a specific niche, right, that's not being met by other companies. Can you share a little bit about that and how when you talk about competition, competitive pressures, and the space you occupy with investors? Can you sort of outline that for us? Either of you.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so we are a nonprofit, and right now we're the only nonprofit that we know of that provides this kind of support to people interested in going solar. We do work with installers across the state, so I didn't get a chance to explain, but another project that we do are like solar co-ops, where we leverage different communities, and we do a very comprehensive RFP, and any installer in that area is able to submit a proposal. So we create access to all of the different installers. There is a little bit of competition going on within those installers. The residents, the homeowners, are the ones that do the selection. We are vendor neutral, so we just facilitate that process. But we have also seen that when we do co-ops, adoption in that general area increases for everyone. So we are really trying to build up the solar industry, and then we also kind of like are able to see like little things that are not working. Like, are there any permitting issues in specific areas, or any communication barriers, or just different things that we're seeing on the field so that we can address. And when we do those things, then it helps not just that those residents and that community that's interested, but it creates access for everybody.
Thank you. And then same question for you, Nick, in terms of other folks that are maybe in the microgreen space. Or
Yeah, there's a good amount, but most of them are smaller farmers. So the main difference with us is that we deal more so on the wholesale end. So there's a lot of individuals that start up farms in their backyard, in their garage even, and sell that to a few restaurants. But for us, we've gotten the certain food safety certifications and the cash flow necessary to support those distributors and to support those sales. But the largest company in California, which I mentioned before, is called Fresh Origins. They do about $200 million in revenue a year, and they ship all throughout the country. But we've already stole a lot of market share from them so far in South Florida, so it's good for us. But thank you. But yeah, we're looking to scale up in the future. And I didn't mention the capital raising status in my presentation, but this all started as a nonprofit. So we are going to be starting a for-profit, and we're seeking about $500,000 for an equity stake in the company, with also partnering with the USDA loan program, which would enable us to get capital to purchase the land and the capital necessary to purchase the greenhouse as well. So we're in the middle of that right now as well.
Great. Thank you. So question, Galen?
Yes.
The question back there? Yeah.
Hi, so good morning. As I mentioned in the introductions, Diana Valdivia with Career Source South Florida, and I have here my colleague, Cy Prince. And it's wonderful what you are doing and contributing to the green and just the climate resiliency for the world, right? But I did want to mention that if there are any staffing needs and in your scaling up in your company, please feel free. You can reach out to myself. You can reach out to Sai as well. We can exchange contact information before we leave. So like that, if you do want to gain services from Career Source South Florida, we are a workforce development agency in Miami-Dade County. We are a Miami-Dade County department, and all the programs that we provide to businesses are funded by the state. So definitely take advantage. We have a wonderful talent pool. We are partnered as well with educational institutions in Miami-Dade County that can provide as well those internships to those individuals that are looking to further their career path within climate resiliency and green jobs. Yes, as well. Yeah, so there's Career Source. So Workforce Development Board. So we are the Workforce Development Board that oversees Miami-Dade County and Monroe. There's also Career Source Broward. So there's a workforce board for the regions throughout the state of Florida.
I'm just going to jump in there and say that through the Climate Ready Tech Hub that we submitted to Economic Development Administration, it covers the whole region. There's a whole workforce component in it, and that is covering Palm Beach down to Key West, and we really have integrated everything. We need to seed it and use it and do it, but if you have workforce needs, including training, internships, apprenticeships, I think that we have laid the bed. Hopefully we get the money from EDA, but either way, we have that network activated right now, so it is like a really rich moment.
There's a question over there too. Yeah.
Good morning. My question is for Jasmine, and I'm wondering if you could delve a little deeper into your business model. If you are looking for your customers, a municipality, an HOA, are you looking for cost-sharing agreements or revenue-sharing agreements since you're generating revenue from the stuff you're growing on their property? How does that really work?
Thank you for asking. I think there's a lot of different approaches and possibilities that I've worked to outline. I think right now I'm leaning into essentially, especially because so much of our water is managed by large, the South Florida Water Management District for one, and other larger municipalities. I'm interested in more of a partnership with them where, in a way, we are kind of getting where we could use the water as a space to grow, without necessarily an exchange of, without necessarily renting the space or them needing to pay for it. Of course, hoping for, assistance, maybe grant-wise, in development in being able to acquire our equipment. That's, as you noticed, our biggest cost at the moment. But overall, it's the idea is, hey, if we can farm for free on some space, I mean, we all know farming is expensive and land is expensive. So the revenue that we can generate from what we're growing there is, pure from there. So that's kind of the model I'm leaning into. I also kind of started with the vision to work with farmers directly and being able, especially those who might have larger water ponds, which I'm having a little harder time identifying down here, though maybe more appropriate closer to like Lake Okeechobee, Central Florida, who have larger stormwater ponds on their property with whom we can kind of do a lease to own on the equipment. So the burden is not necessarily on them upfront, or maybe we can also get a grant for that from USDA for conservation services. There's a lot of programs out there for farmers to help with improving their conservation impacts, to help offset those equipment costs. And at that point, we could train them, or any provider. I mean, I've even thought we can do this with nonprofits. For the first couple years, where as Phytoflora, we would keep the revenue, but we're training our kind of partner. And then at a certain point, we pass the torch and say, okay, you guys got this. We can help you move the products. We're creating a distribution network, but you have the capacity to, keep the revenue here and kind of empower all sorts of different actors in our landscape to kind of be able to help clean our water without it necessarily being this huge financial burden to them. Because a lot of times with farmers, that's the case. It's one more thing to do. And so I want this to be something that incentivizes us, that maybe we have another crop that we could sell by employing this and bringing in a little extra income on the side. I hope that helps answer that.
Yeah, Galen.
I've been watching you all. Like, I read all of your applications last year, and it's been exciting to see where you've gone. And I think if you hadn't noticed, they're all using some form of blended financing, right? Mm-hmm. Loans, philanthropy, investment. And this is where we have to go to have impact, right? Mm-hmm. It's pretty complicated. But my question for the three of you is, how has being part of the Venture Fellows program, how did that change your ambition? And in terms of how you, and kind of the frame of how you do the thing that you want to do.
For me, really, I just finished my dissertation in December, so I was doing this fellowship while kind of becoming a scientist in the process. So I was learning about the business side of things, really from the ground up. I mean, granted, I've had some experience growing and working with farms, but being able to see what it would take to create a large impact, not just a community garden, for example, has been really eye-opening and humbling absolutely. And I've been able to, a lot of workshops that have introduced us to various types of financiers, like you mentioned, whether it's from SBIR, which I'm excited to try my hand at, or, other more climate-focused VC folks, or the better term that I'm starting to gravitate for all of us is impact investors, right? And starting to just understand what all that is and see that there's all sorts of variety of actors out there, and we don't just have to, go the traditional route of startups. We can try to tap into the network of folks that are out there that are really interested in supporting these specific efforts.
Yeah, I think for us, same, just knowing that there's other ways to finance, not just philanthropy and grants, and even just honing in on being able to ask for that support, that we need to really be able to scale up and support these communities in the ways that we want to do that. I remember we struggled so much with just like asking for that when we were creating our pitch. So it's been really great to do that, and we really appreciate it, Larta.
Yeah, for me, Larta definitely helped me with a few things. First and foremost, it was the corporate structure. Initially, when we started this, we never thought of even starting a for-profit. And then as I talked more with my mentor that we got in the fellowship, she's like, yeah, why don't you start a for-profit? And you can actually make money while also doing good for the community and for the environment. I'm like, that's not a bad idea at all. But no, besides that, the climate part was definitely a core focus that they really helped me on, was actually identifying the impact that we're having at our facility and the impact that we could have in the future. But overall, it was the corporate structure in addition to the climate impact that we're looking to have as well. Larta definitely helped provide a good framework for that as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to also point out that we couldn't do this program, the Venture Fellows program. We're about to start cohort number 2. Without the support of other organizations. And I see Leo Toka back there. So Wells Fargo Small Business Philanthropy, we really appreciate your support. If it wasn't for you guys, this wouldn't have happened. And so we're glad to have support of Wells Fargo and some utilities as well. If anybody else is interested in being a partner or coming alongside us and in continuing to amplify the program, let us know, let me know, or Hannah as well. But Leo, thank you for coming here today, and thank you for kicking this off. Appreciate it. Thank you.
I'll squeeze one last remark. In general, also
Yeah.
thank you for,
Sure.
Beyond, talking to people with money, you guys have created opportunity for us to talk and just feel validated and feel affirmed that, this is something that is worth growing. And that goes a long way, even in and of itself, and having opportunity to meet the folks who are in this work. So thank you for that.
I'll turn it over to you, Galen. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Question.
I have one last question.
Yeah.
For all three of you, you guys shared a lot about kind of your capital goals, what funds you're raising. But maybe to close off, could you share a little bit about kind of any other asks that you might have for all the people in this room? We heard from people in academia, major nonprofits, people from the county, people in the city. So just wanted to put it out there before we go into networking. If there's kind of any other final asks that could spark people's minds that you guys want to share.
So I just wanted to kind of open the door for Sun. If anybody here is ever interested in going solar, if your institution or your business, you need support, assistance, or you want to be part of our network, we've been able to do so much advocacy work in Florida to make sure that we can still have access to solar in our homes. So I invite you to join us. We do a lot of work in Miami, a lot of work in Broward and Palm Beach. So I hope we stay connected and then you'll partner with us.
Yeah, also, I guess partnerships, and folks who may have water on their property, if you're interested in trialing something like this out, then let's set something up. And overall, I've noticed a lot of these wonderful grants that are coming in obviously require collaborators and partnerships, and so the more the merrier, and I'm open to chatting. So yeah.
Yeah, for us, Career Source, definitely going to talk to you guys, because we obviously need people to run the farm as well. But in addition to that, if you know of any restaurant owners or people who work in distribution for produce, more than happy to talk with you, as well as any type of partnership you could see with our organization, more than happy to have a conversation about that. So again, thank you all.
you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to shout out for Larta because we actually, the Nature Conservancy connected with United Solar Neighbors for the Solar for All application for low-income solar, $250 million for low-income solar in Florida, and that's because of the introduction that Larta made to you all. So the work you're doing in the community is important, and it's making important connections, so thank you.
Yeah, I think I'm just going to take this so we get a little time for networking, but I have a little bit to close out. Thank you all, and yeah, like. And I think that idea of these fortuitous connections that can then be leveraged to bring in the funds, we have a huge opportunity here in South Florida, in the country, and in the region. We're really positioning ourselves to be that catalyst, right? And it's just been great to hear about this today. Part of what we're doing to build these connections, working with Opportunity Miami and the Beacon Council, is having an ecosystem database. So it's a climate business ecosystem database. And it is at opp.miami/climate tech. I will throw it up here, but if you haven't signed up, or even if you have, you should go and look at it. It's also in the newsletter that that Opportunity Miami sent out yesterday. So if that's not in your inbox, it should be. And yeah, and taking videos, taking pictures, share there. You guys should repost that. And also use Opportunity Miami as this accelerator for narratives about the success that we're having. Thank you all. I think we can just release you to chat. And thank you so much to Larta for coming out. And
Thank you.